So it's you hangout time again, and today I'm joined with Aaron Powell. How you doing, Aaron? You're still muted.
I'm doing.
There we go.
I'm doing really well with a muted microphone. Professionals. That's what we are here.
That's it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's do some quick introductions. Obviously, you're an Aussie, obviously down in Sydney. So obviously, what is it, like 11 or something now, is it? What's the time?
Just going 10:30.
10:30.
Yeah, it's a Friday night, so I'm surprisingly sober for 10:30 in the evening. I do have my trusty beer to get through the rest of the evening. So
Awesome. Good stuff.
it's like midday, so it's fine for you guys too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Friday. It's the weekend. Come on. So obviously, how did you? We'll kind of do a bit of introduction. How did you get involved with Umbraco?
I was actually been trying to work out when I first got involved in Umbraco. So I think it was about 2007 when I first kind of became aware of / involved with Umbraco. I was working for a company in Melbourne that was like you did in the mid and early 2000s, wrote your own CMS.
Exactly. Like everyone did.
Everyone wrote their own CMS, and then it got to the point where writing and maintaining our own CMS was probably not the best way to scale up, and started looking at some other alternatives. I was working with some big, complex content management systems, one of which was SharePoint at the time, which is really the best CMS out there, totally.
Oh, yeah.
But we were looking for things that were better for small customers, and we started looking at the open source stuff in the .NET space, and that's how Umbraco kind of came onto the radar. At the time, it wasn't really big outside of Europe, and I think we were one of the first companies in Australia to pick it up, and we somehow managed to convince Niels to get on a plane for 20 odd hours or whatever it is, the flight time over from Denmark, and he ran a training course for us, and then I actually wasn't involved in that training course. I just kind of looked in from the windows outside while everyone else got to do.
Yeah, please teach me.
Yeah. Damn! I have to go back to building sites in SharePoint because that's yeah. Any excuse to get me out of there. But yeah, I really started getting interested in the idea of this much more lightweight approach to content management systems, and through various things, my claim to fame originally was with Umbraco was writing Link to Umbraco. I had this idea that it'd be a really good idea to replace the XML APIs that was Umbraco 2, 3, 4 with a strongly typed .NET API. I'm a .NET guy through and through, so I was like, I don't need to learn XPath. I'm going to .NET apply this.
I don't want to learn XPath and XSLT. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember having a debate at Code Garden with you on stage one year.
I think we did.
Versus .NET. So that was my claim to fame, but it was a pretty spectacularally bad claim to fame because it like a good developer, I overpromised and underdelivered.
As always.
I'm not ashamed to say that I don't think Link to Umbraco was the right thing at the time. But I still stayed involved with Umbraco for a number of years. The longest running feature that I'm aware of that was in Umbraco core that I contributed was up until version 7 with the old tree. When you highlighted and selected items, the little icon would turn blue. That was this guy.
That's your claim to fame in the core.
Yeah, it was like when they did the new UI, I'm like, no, my last feature is gone. I was then involved with the ill-fated Umbraco 5. I left. I was a contributor at the time for Umbraco. I left before Umbraco 5 got towards its end for various reasons that beyond the scope of this. But I got back involved with just before the end of Umbraco 5 and was actually lucky enough to be at that Code Garden. Is lucky enough the right way to describe that?
Yeah, it was an interesting Code Garden.
Yeah, so it was a really good experience. So getting to be there for that was like it was really eye opening, just seeing how a project can undertake such a kind of event in its life cycle. But again, after that, I stepped back my desire to be really a solid contributor to the project. At the time, I was not working on anything particularly Umbraco related for my job, so I was finding it difficult to stay engaged from a contributor level, just because I didn't know what people were doing with the CMS.
Yep.
I still kind of sit now on the fringes of the community. I'm well known for throwing out, let's go with interesting questions to various members of the community whenever it feels appropriate.
Yep.
But last year I was back into the Umbraco space, and I started looking at it, having worked with a couple of other content management systems since then, about a problem that we continuously come across in sort of projects I work with, and that's how we deploy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what led me down the path that then allowed me to bug you enough to invite me on the show.
Awesome. No, that's good stuff. Deployment is always the bane of any developer, be it a CMS to even just a flat old basic website. Deployment is the bane of us developers. So anything to make it easier is going to be a welcome to the community. So so obviously this project's called Chauffeur. So how did the name come about? First of all, let's talk trivial stuff. Let's talk trivial stuff first.
So we're all familiar with Courier, right?
Yeah.
Everyone that's built an Umbraco website is probably familiar with Courier, and I've always found Courier a bit of a pain point, particularly when you get to certain levels of complexity with your site.
Yep.
And when you're looking at doing things like how do we move things across multiple environments, or like if we've got stuff in Azure or AWS, like how do we deploy up to those environments? Yep. Particularly if we don't have write access to the disks, Azure being a great example of that sort of scenario. So it started as an idea of like, I want to tackle this problem of deployments because I've got some opinions about how I think deployments could be done differently compared to the way that Courier does them. So I started playing around with it. I'm like, I need to name this. Well, it's not Courier. I want it to be like better than Courier.
Better than Courier. Is that the strap line?
Yeah, well, I was like, I want it to be classy. So that's why a chauffeur is a classy guy that helps you deliver things. Okay. Whereas Courier is just that's just your standard way of delivering things.
Okay.
So it was a bit of an inside joke with myself.
Fair enough.
And now with like the audience that is dialed in for this now, they've got in the inside joke. It's not really solving the same problems as Courier does, but that was where it kind of started off its life as a bit of a piss take on Courier.
Yeah. Okay.
Mate, can I say piss on this?
Yeah, it's fine.
Because it's probably going to go downhill in terms of my language otherwise.
No, it's fine. You're talking to a Brit. Okay, so obviously now we've got a little bit of background. Maybe we should take a look into how actually Chauffeur works. Sure.
Maybe I'll just give a bit of a rundown of like what it does, so people can dial out if they're really just bored, and then we'll jump into
I like the way you're setting the bar really high there. If you're bored, you can tune out now.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of people have probably seen me speak at Code Garden in the past, and I'm fairly brutally honest with my approach to speaking.
Fair enough.
So the problem that I was always ran up against was there's a lot of stuff inside the Umbraco database. Right? Your doc types are in there. For a long time, your templates were in there. There's a lot of things like your media items, at least your media item definitions, your macro definitions, that kind of stuff. That all sits inside of this database that you can't easily transfer across environments, particularly once you start doing changes to it. So you've deployed into production and then you're doing the next round of bug fixes on a site, or you're doing the next round of feature improvements. Yeah. So I wanted to tackle that particular problem, like how, as a developer, I know how to move code between environments, but this stuff's in the database. It's not really code. So I want to look at how I can move that between environments.
Yeah.
We started using a product called Octopus Deploy, which some people may or may not be familiar with. It's a deployment tool, allows you to transfer things between environments based off of packages, and I really like that idea of click a button and then it runs a bunch of sequential tasks of run database upgrades, copy files into the appropriate location, set up IIS if it's that kind of deployment. And I was like, I actually like that approach even from a stuff that Umbraco has to care about. Like, it'd be really cool if I could automate the deployment of my document types into an environment as part of the almost QA process to say a deployment worked. And if it fails to import those document types, then I mark that deployment as bad and I don't redeploy that. And I've then got like full source control history on all of this sort of stuff.
Okay.
So I was looking around at other things that do this. Usync.
I was going to say, I was literally just about to bring that up. Usync obviously tackles probably some of that, what you've just talked about.
Yeah, so it's the main one that kind of does this sort of thing. Probably the best known one. There's been plenty of other approaches attempted for code first for Umbraco. I've written code first for Umbraco. There's great opinions on the concept of code first and whether or not it could actually work. But the main issue I saw with Usync and anyone that's tried doing code first is that you have to make a choice of when does that synchronization happen? Like, is it happening the first time someone hits your website? That's a really poor experience for the first person that comes to your website. Yeah. You also can't say that your deployment was successful until you've run that. Like until someone's hit your website. You don't know whether you were successful in like making sure you had all the doc type properties there, that the macro definitions were correct, that any new data types you were creating, like all that kind of stuff. Like you didn't know that happened until someone hit it and someone saw an error. Yeah. So I wanted to automate this process and, like I said, run this as a step of a deployment. So not actually have to spin up Umbraco. I don't want to have to go to the website the back office to do it. I don't want to have to click around buttons. I just want run something and magic happen.
Magic happens and it's there.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I have a website and it's got the updates that I wanted. So that was the problem that I wanted to try and solve, and Chauffeur was my approach to doing that. So I'm just firing up Visual Studio and starting screen shares. There we go.
Awesome.
Let's do a dance while screen share starts up and while Chauffeur loads up. So it's an open source project. It's up on my GitHubs. People can go have a look at it. Be amazed at my brilliant coding. The fact that I have a class in there called Shitty IOC, stuff like that. Yeah.
Honest and to the point.
I wanted an IOC container, but I didn't want something particularly complex, so I made a shitty IOC container. All right, so Chauffeur itself is actually a console application. Okay. Or probably more accurately, Chauffeur itself is a DLL that can be hosted by a number of different approaches. The primary host, and the only one that I've written, the only one I've ever tested with, is a console application. Okay. So this is where it comes to the point of I didn't want to have to spin up Umbraco to make this happen. I want to run a console application because my IIS could be turned off for all that really matters. I should still be able to deploy.
Okay, so interesting.
Yeah, so there's it's two NuGet packages, one which is Chauffeur itself, and then a Chauffeur host being the console application called Chauffeur Runner. And what it does is, actually I'll swap over, we'll leave Visual Studio for the moment, and I will come over to a folder, which, if I remember correctly, is demo bin. Now, I have a a console application in here called Chauffeur Runner.
Yep.
So this runs a REPL almost for Umbraco. So what we've got is a command prompt that allows me to execute a bunch of commands, help list out a whole bunch of the commands. So these are things that I build in. I call the commands deliverable. There's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek naming convention for everything. So we have deliverables are things that you do because Chauffeur delivers things around. The base classes are called deliveries and things like that. Initially, I was playing around with what could you do entirely from the Umbraco API without having a HTTP context.
I was going to say, there's I know for certain fact there's certain things that you can't do in terms of content publishing would be one. So I presume Chauffeur does or doesn't handle that?
No, so Chauffeur is entirely separate from the concept of content. So while it was initially done in jest of Courier, I actually see it as a sibling tool for to Courier. Mm-hmm. Courier, I think, is a really great tool if you're wanting to move content. Yep. The problems that I've always hit with it is when you start having to do document type changes or data type changes. Yeah, that's where it really starts to have troubles. And understanding what I understand of the entire process of what needs to be done, I can appreciate why it has problems with it and in that sort of space, because it's an exceedingly complex problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So that's why I say this is the sort of thing that you would run as a deployment step. Mm-hmm. And content migration, I think, is something that you do outside of a deployment. So a deployment being a new code for a website. So yeah, something like that. And then content, you're going to migrate a whole lot more frequently between environments. It's not the sort of thing that you would only do sort of once a month because it's end of sprint, or once a quarter because you've got a very long release schedule or something like that. Yep. You want to push content a lot more frequently.
Yeah, of course. So, first question: How does this runner know about the Umbraco site? Is it because the executable is inside the website, or do I point it to some HTTP endpoint? How does the runner know about the Umbraco installation? Or
so the runner is designed to run from within the bin folder of the Umbraco instance that you're interacting with.
Right.
So what it does for people that are interested at a technical level is it looks to see if the app config is configured in a certain way. It has the Umbraco DSN set up. It has a couple of other things I think I look for. And if it doesn't have those, it actually restarts itself in an entirely new app domain with the web config of your Umbraco website as the app config for Chauffeur. Okay. So it's self-restarting, and it then brings in everything that's in your web config. So you get your connection string that you've defined for your Umbraco instance. If you've got any app settings and things like that, you can access those. If you've your mail settings, all those sorts of things are then available inside of Chauffeur. And also, because it's running in the bin folder of your Umbraco application, it loads up all the DLLs of Umbraco. And quite a number of the backend services, particularly from version 7 onwards, so there's a hard limit on, I think it's version 7.1.1, I think is the minimum version that Chauffeur supports. Uh-huh. You can actually do things like interact with document types, interact with data types,
okay, so I presume this is because you're using the services APIs that Umbraco uses.
Yep. So and that's why I think there's some beauty in the simplicity of this. Is I haven't built my own import engine. It uses the same import export engine that Umbraco itself uses. So you just end up with your XML export for a document type, and that it will directly import.
Okay.
So it's still got that nice transferable features set to it. Mm-hmm. Once you spin it up, you end up at a REPL like this. I'm currently running inside of an instance that doesn't have anything installed. So running the commands is actually going to fail because I don't even have the database file on disk. Yep. But the first thing that I can do, and this was like, when I managed to get this thing working, I was like, this concept can actually work, is if I run install, the first thing it does is it says, hey, it seems like you wanted SQL CE, but there isn't a SQL CE database. Do you want to create it? Because what I'm going to do now is I'm then going to run the SQL install scripts for Umbraco and set up your Umbraco instance. So we'll just hit yes. So it goes off, creates the database, prepares the database, and that has now created an empty Umbraco database, upgraded to version 7.1.1, which is the version that this particular build is running against. Mm-hmm. And you can, like, from a browser, kind of Control F5 from Visual Studio or reload in the browser and actually hit the website and go straight through to the back office.
So would this have done the kind of the install wizard, so to speak?
Yeah, so this skips the install wizard that you would have with Umbraco. It won't install a starter kit because that has to go out and download stuff from the internet. this is, and also it's not sort of designed for use with the starter kits. It's more designed for like use in a team. So I've cloned my repository because I'm new to the project. First thing I've done, I've gone Chauffeur install, and it's installed the database, and then I can run some other commands and get all the document types and stuff like that set up, and then I can start interacting with the website. I don't see the need for installing starter kits with this sort of a tool.
No, I would agree. Yeah. But with that database set up, as you didn't go through the wizard, how on earth what's the username and password? You didn't specify.
So it sets up the default password as password, I think. No, it's the default password that Umbraco itself installs with, which actually, no, I think is password. I would have to look into my code and tell you exactly what it is.
That's fine. I thought there might be some magic wizardry that you were doing. So basically, you're running the same SQL setup script that the installer would just run.
Yep, that's correct. So it's the SQL scripts that you would run through the wizard. The only thing it doesn't prompt you for is the default username and password. This has only really been tested for 7.1. I haven't actually had a chance to test it with 7.2, despite that's been out for a bit now. Because I know that the install and setup process and the way that it prompts you for your initial credentials is slightly different. I believe this sets up, this still uses the -1 user account that Umbraco shipped out of the box for a long time. So you end up with a user account called admin and then I think a password of password. But that's a good segue onto like what else can we do with Chauffeur. So with Chauffeur, I have a particular command here called user. So if I go help you or help user, you can see on the screen that a lot of the commands have aliases. So user has an alias of you.
Cool.
And this tells me what I can do from that particular command that I can run. So I can run you with change password, give it the ID of a user, old and new password, and it will go and update that user. It will also, if you've got hashing in your web config, which Umbraco ships in the box, hashing turned on, it will use that. If you've changed something in your web config, you want to use a different hashing algorithm, it will use whatever you've got defined for the user account that you've set up.
Okay.
So we'll see if I can remember this. So if we run change password, user ID is -1.
Yeah.
And I think that's the default.
You think the old password is password?
Yeah, I think the old password is password, and we'll give it a password 1. Using ID -1 doesn't exist. Awesome, I can't remember what the default user is. Oh, wait. No, -1, that might have been recycling it. It might be 1. Yeah, whatever. No, user does not exist.
Oh.
If someone wants to tweet me what the default user ID is, excellent.
I trust you that it works.
Yeah, moving on from that point. I'm going to jump back to Visual Studio, and we'll come through to. So in the the repository on GitHub, there's a bunch of sample stuff in there, and there's a sample project, which is the Chauffeur demo project, which is a Umbraco install that you can spin up and run. I thought I actually had some other sample content in here, but possibly not. Let me just go show all files. So I thought I had in app data. No. All right. So let's Visual Studio hasn't launched it. I'm going to quit and I'm going to delete my Umbraco database because I want to show a different way that we can do that. So let's go app data, delete that. Now, so the Chauffeur runner tool also takes command line arguments, so I can do like install from the command line. So this is where it would be more accurate inside of a deployment process. Yep. So you could do like Chauffeur, like here's the executables path, and then run this particular command. Be it install. In this case, yep, we've installed. We ended up with our SDF file there, which I could probably actually open in Visual Studio and find the user ID. Anyway. But that's still kind of limited, particularly if you've got a lot of things you want to do. So if we wanted to add document types and stuff like that, it starts becoming very tedious to run a whole lot of commands. So I'm going to delete that. And let's go new folder. What did I call this? I think I called this Chauffeur. And just like everyone amuse yourselves for a second while I look up my code. Yeah. Where do I actually look for Chauffeur deliver? No, that's the table name. Wait, folder. No. Where's my folder name? That should have been written down somewhere. Would have been so much easier if I actually wrote down my stuff. Damn it. Anyway, so what I was actually looking for is there's another way that Chauffeur can be executed, which is called a deliverable. So the idea of a deliverable is that it's a series of steps to execute sequentially. So where I've just gone Chauffeur install, and then after that I could do like Chauffeur change password for a particular user, and then finally import some content types, document types. I could have a single file that actually has all those steps in it and just say Chauffeur deliver, and it will execute all of those in order. What it will then do after that is it will put an item in the database. It creates a new database table. It then puts an item in that database table that says this particular delivery with this name has been run. So if you were to run Chauffeur deliver again, it won't re-execute.
Okay.
So it keeps track of sort of where you're at in the setup process, like how many steps have you executed previously, so we don't have to execute them again. That idea is akin to a lot of sort of database migration tools. If anyone's used like EF code first,
I was just about to say entity framework.
Yeah, so that's where that sort of idea came from. So while it's an Umbraco specific product, but I've borrowed ideas from a lot of tooling that people have probably come across and might be familiar with. Things like running migration steps. But all you say is you tell EF to just run migrations, and we'll go ahead and run all of the migrations that it's worked out that you haven't executed previously. Chauffeur will do the same thing with deliveries. It will run all of them sequentially. Might actually have an example of this on the GitHubs. Let's go to the GitHubs and have a look.
In the meantime, Bob...
You ask me questions while I look around.
Bob Battybar seems to think the user ID is 0. Not -1, not 1, but 0.
That sounds correct. Yes. Okay. If I can remember where abouts this folder I need to create is delivery. I might have documented this.
You might have actually written some documentation.
Oh, yeah, it tries to locate them, but where does it try to locate them? Tell me. Coming back to what I was talking about in terms of delivery, down here at the bottom, this is an example of a delivery file. So it might be a particular set of setup steps that you want to do. So what it does is it runs your database install. Hey, look, it was user 0. Yeah. Well done, Bobby.
Yep.
And the password was default, not password. It would have failed regardless. So this is 6 steps, 5? 6. Yep. It is 6 steps that it would execute. Run and install. It would change the user password. It would then execute a number of packages. So package is another command that I've not got documented on my documentation, but it looks for the XML export that you get from Umbraco, from or macros, templates, and data types, things like that.
So is that generating those files, or is that importing these files?
It's importing from those files. So think of it as you've got your Umbraco website. You've used Usync to export these. So it's designed to work with Usync in tandem. So Usync will export them, put them on disk, and then you tell Chauffeur that you want to use those as a deployment. So it looks for a file called datatypes.xml and then runs those templates, so on and so forth. So like I said, it can run in tandem with Usync. But let's see if I can create this file. I think I need to create a folder called Chauffeur. and we'll create a file in here called setup.001 setup, and we'll paste that stuff in, save, and Chauffeur deliver. Wait, was it deliver? Yeah. All right, so let's watch magic not happen. Magic not happen. Okay, so it's in the wrong folder. No, it's in a badly named file. Delivery. Other people are probably watching this going, did he like not do any demos beforehand? Or,
yeah.
Professional. There we go. Okay, so while that quickly spins through, we'll go back and have a look. So the first thing it does is it tries to locate the change tracking table. So the delivery tracking table. You know, see the puns are everywhere.
Yeah.
Finds out that there's something wrong trying to connect to the database, or it just can't find the table. So there's a couple of things that it's going to assume might have happened. The database doesn't exist. In this case, that's true. There's no database. It might have the database might exist, but it might be the first time you've run the delivery command, so it hasn't got a change tracking table.
Yep. So
Yep. So what it once it's done that, it will attempt to run the first delivery that it's found, and it just tells you that while I'm attempting to run this, I'm pretty sure that the first thing I'm expecting to run is the install command. If you don't install, then I'm just going to continue to fail, which it's run the install command, and it's gone, hey, you had a SQL CE database. I passed in a -y flag, as you'll see in the documentation, which just tells it that I want to create the database if it doesn't already exist.
Yeah.
It will also work with SQL Server. I've never tried with MySQL because I don't know anyone that's deployed an Umbraco MySQL instance.
No, I can't say I have either.
So, I mean, it might work. I don't know. But yeah, so it'll attempt to do those, creates, installs the database, runs the Umbraco install scripts. Once that's done, we can move on to the next step, which is change the user ID 0. Thanks, Bobby.
Yep.
And updates their password. And then it creates the database table for Chauffeur deliveries. Let's open up that SDF file and just have a poke around. So prove that there's no black magic happening here. Just going to use LinkPad to find my SQL CE, browse to this folder. Open that. Yep. Excellent. So we have an Umbraco database, which has the sorts of things that we expect when we first install an Umbraco database.
Yep.
Umbraco node table has my LinkPad I think is broken. LinkPad is giving me error messages about like compiler stuff. Thanks, LinkPad. Yeah, moving on. Anyway, there's a table there at least. Success, great success.
What would we have seen in that table then?
So what we would have seen in that table, so it's got a couple of things in there. So it's got the ID, just primary key, the name of the delivery that we executed.
So is that the name of the delivery file, whatever you've called it, blah.delivery?
Yep. So that'll be the name of the delivery. Whoops. Let's just try SQL from Chauffeur delivery. Oops. Run. There we go. Okay, so no, I don't think that's going to zoom in. Bugger.
That's fine.
So yeah, the name of the delivery, when it was executed, was it signed for?
What does that mean?
Whether the delivery was successful.
Okay.
So someone signed off that worked. Like puns everywhere.
Puns everywhere, man. Yeah.
Enjoy my humor. And then I actually compute a hash of the file that was run, so that it's a feature that I haven't got around to fully implementing. But basically, it could use the hash to look at a delivery that it's trying to execute and go, well, the file that you're saying is to be executed, I actually have a hash that matches that already. So you might have already run these steps. You want to continue, or you tell it to run, and it looks at and sees that it previously failed, and it looks at the hash and is going, well, the hashes are still the same. It's possibly going to fail again. Do you want to continue? That sort of stuff. So the hash being unique based off of what the contents of the file are, so we can keep going next time around. Yeah, that's and the idea is that the more of these deliveries that you create, the more entries you'll get in here, and when the delivery command runs, it looks at this table and just works out what has not previously been run. Let's run anything after that.
Okay. So how would you use this in kind of like a team deployment then? So we've done our initial, initial release. We're now created some bug fixes. We now need to the client's jumping up and down, and we need to get this out to production pretty quick. What would we do? What's the next?
So I'd probably be doing like awesome hot fixes. All right. Now, assuming that we've done all the changes in the Umbraco back office, got that all set up, export the whatever needed to be changed, so our document types, our macro definitions, etc. With macros and templates,
hopefully we are back. Let's join Aaron. Right, Aaron. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out where I was previously.
I think we were
talking about team development.
And team development, and how we would go about doing like a bug fix or patch fix.
Yeah, so as I was saying before the break, what I'd be doing is what I do is I create delivery steps kind of for point in times of when things happen. So that represents that particular patch. It's sequentially numbered beyond whatever the last one is. So in this case, 2. And then inside of that, I would tell it to execute the commands to say update document types, update macros, things like that.
So I presume it runs the delivery 1 and then it runs on to delivery 2, or does it just go straight to delivery 2?
It will run whatever has not previously been run on the environment. So if
if it's on a table.
Yeah, so that's why I've got the database table, is so that we can track what's been run previously. So yeah, we only execute what we have to execute.
Yeah.
I think it was something that I talked for like a minute or two of while we had the connection issues.
Yeah.
With like the templates and the macros, Chauffeur won't actually copy across the Razor files, HTMLs. They won't actually get copied across, and the reason for that is that I always envisage the usage of Chauffeur in conjunction with some other deployment process. So you're probably using, say, Octopus to do a deployment across, or you're doing if you're using just Azure websites, you might be Git pushing to a server, and that's like deploying into Azure websites. So I still envisage that sort of stuff resides in source control.
So everything minus the files, so to speak.
Yeah, because what I'm focusing on is how do I get the stuff into the database, and your templates don't live in the database anymore. It's just the metadata around the templates that still lives in the database.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a caveat, I guess, with the way Chauffeur works, is that it expects things to be in source control, or at least in some kind of system that you're using to copy those onto production, and then execute Chauffeur as part of that copy to production process. Yeah. And then just like as a project evolves, I just add more and more deliveries, and they represent, they're all often fairly minor things that it's doing. Like it might be adding a property to a document type, adding a new data type, adding macros, and kind of keeping them small and very single-minded in what they do, rather than having like this click button, like build entire website from one script. And if like 0.5 of the 30 steps that are failing fails, then who knows what state my application is going to be in. if I've got 30 individual steps that I can execute and step 5 fails, I know exactly where that happened and I know where I can roll back from, sort of idea.
Okay.
Probably the last thing I wanted to cover off with Chauffeur is I've deliberately designed it around extensibility because while I have ideas on things that I want to do with it and things that I want other people to do with it, people to use it for, obviously I don't know everyone's scenarios. It kind of speaks back to my point of not being involved as much in Umbraco because it's not something I'm using day to day often. So there's things that other people might want to do with it. So I made a very deliberate choice that everything is extensible and it's or at least it should be very easy to write your own extensions for it. Everything in Chauffeur is actually written on top of the extensibility engine. Theoretically, Chauffeur doesn't actually do anything out of the box other than self-host an executable and give you access to the Umbraco APIs. So for this demo,
let's take. I was going to say, or go on. If you've got a demo in mind, I was going to say let's take a look at something relatively simple. Say the change password one.
Yep. So
I would imagine that's not too complex.
No. So to the point of that, everything is built on top of the extensibility model. The help system is actually built on top of the plugin engine. So you can theoretically not have help because you've not got that plugin included.
Yeah.
In theory, you actually have to do quite a lot of work to make sure that doesn't happen, but you can do it.
If you wanted
to. If you really want to, you can get rid of the help system. Anyway, I'll jump to use it because it's suitably complex, but at the same time, it's still reasonably easy to work with. So the base class is called is a deliverable. That's our lovely little base class down here, and it takes a text reader and a text writer. These represent ways that it communicates back to whoever your Chauffeur host is. In the case of the console application, it's standard in and standard out, so you can write to console write line and read from console read line, but they come in as readers that will actually be given to you by the IOC container that Chauffeur has built into it. So you can get dependency injection into what you're working with, and it exposes like the input stream and the output stream. And then there's a single method that is used that you need to implement, and that's called run. You don't actually have to implement it. It being a base class, you can choose not to implement this, and it will do nothing other than just you'll type your command and it goes, cool, I'm going to give you back your REPL prompt. Everything is also asynchronous because the Umbraco APIs are predominantly going async. So you get a bit of performance that way inside of a console application.
Cool.
Anyway, back to our user one here. So you'll see with the constructor here, it is doing a bit of additional dependency injection. So I've got my text reader and my text writer coming in.
Yep.
I'm also getting injected the Umbraco membership provider base. So it's probably a bit difficult for people to read watching on the YouTube stream, but that's actually the class that comes from the Umbraco security module. So if I jump through, that's the base class that's exposed by Umbraco core security.
Yep.
It's using what Umbraco itself uses.
Awesome. Yeah. So I don't have to learn anything new if I want to extend Chauffeur. It should be everything that you can access from Umbraco without having a HTTP context. You should be capable of doing here. So moving down into our run command, the run method. So you get two things passed into you. First is the command. So what did someone type? So that is help or you or user or install, something like that. It'll give you that if you just want to, you might want to do something with that. I'm not sure of a lot of reasons you might want to do that, but you might want to do that. Yep.
Then it gives you array of arguments. So anything that the person might have typed in after your command name. So in this case, the user command has arguments that are passed to it. Yep. So they'll come in. Come in as an array. Very simple thing here. It just says if there weren't any arguments, just write to the output writer saying that you didn't tell me what to do with the user, and then you return a delivery response. So delivery response just tells Chauffeur what to do next time. So you can get Chauffeur to shut down if you want to. Like if you want to make a command that under certain scenarios, if something happens, it will terminate. So that might be if you're writing to your own database tables, and Chauffeur is completely happy to write to your own database tables too. And yeah, like you try to do a particular insert and that fails, you want to stop right there. You can have it finish. So continue is just the standard one. It's like, yep, everything was all good. Or you can say everything was all good, but there was an error. So it does some additional error reporting to the screen. It'll tell you like an error happened. This is what happened. Kind of allow you to. It doesn't terminate the application, but it gives you enough information to make the conscious decision of whether you want to terminate the application there. And that's more from like if you're using the executable as in a REPL scenario rather than having it execute a bunch of commands in a headless mode. And then this one here just determines what operation that you've done. So change password, jump down into a change password method. Check to make sure that we actually met the argument requirements of this. So we need some parameters. We need the old password, the new password, and the user ID. Let's assume that they were all good. We try and get the user ID out. So the user ID being an integer, it's not valid. I haven't done it at the moment, but it wouldn't be very difficult to allow you to type the username. So like your email address now in 7.2. From the user, from the membership provider, we just get the user, pass in the various arguments that we need. So don't actually care what the
provider is, like you said, is just the Umbraco membership provider object.
Yep. If there's no user, as we saw earlier, it will tell you that the user doesn't exist.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then eventually we go down and we call the change password method, and if that was successful or not, we'll write out a different message. The last thing that this does is this also implements an interface called I provide directions. Yeah, and that's to feed back into the help system. So we have a method down the bottom called directions, and that's what happens if you were to do like help user.
Okay.
It executes this method and goes, here's the help for that command that you've tried to execute. I might actually jump to something slightly more complex and possibly a bit more commonly used. Let's go to package deliverable. So this one here is about interacting with the Umbraco packaging service, so importing data types, etc., etc.
Yep.
So this one gets in a couple of additional dependencies. So it gets access to the file system. I give you an abstract representation of a file system because you can write unit tests then against everything, because everyone unit tests awesome.
Yep.
Chauffeur settings. So this is like the Chauffeur directory that I had to create inside of app data. Gives you the ability to access that. The connection string. So that's your Umbraco database connection string. So I just exposed that out for you. Just some convenient helpers, basically. Okay. And then this is the Umbraco packaging service. So actually from Umbraco core services. So if anyone's done any programmatic work with the package service, this is the kind of thing that Usync also uses under the hood.
Yep.
I give you an instance of that that allows you to call export. So you can actually export from Chauffeur. I'm not sure if I exposed that, but you could even write your own command to export languages or macros, etc., etc. Yep. Or alternatively, we can import. Because this does actually expose the packaging service as Umbraco uses, you can import content. Despite what I said earlier about Chauffeur not being focused on content, that's more of a courier responsibility. Mm-hmm. You can import content, but you can only import content as well as you could import it when you create an Umbraco package. So that's somewhat limited. You get a bit of a basic structure. Yep. If you're importing content and it already exists, it doesn't override it. It creates duplicates and stuff like that. Yep. Mm-hmm. So the importing content would be useful though if you've got a bunch of ads that you've got within, say, your website, and you want to script them up, and they're defaultly inserted and stuff like that. There's
Simple,
I can see scenarios.
stuff.
Yeah. The sort of stuff that you might import from a starter kit or your base website package. Those are dependencies that I inject in. In this case, what it does is it gets out the Chauffeur directory. So we're going to be reading stuff from those packages and importing them. Once we find that out, we work out what you want to import from that package file. So the XML file that you've got, and the XML file can contain document types and data types and macros and templates and style sheets and stuff like that. And then once we've imported those, once we've imported the XML, we then work out what of that you want. So if I come down, you'll see here, if you have data types, we'll work out, we'll attempt to unpack data types, and that will just do a check to make sure that you wanted them. So on and so forth. So yeah, it'll read the different sections out. That's the list of stuff that it does by default, and then it will just give you some information about what it's doing. So this is something probably a bit more commonly used, like bringing in stuff, be it from Usync or be it from a package that you've created manually yourself, and I give you access to the stuff that Umbraco itself is using under the hood so that you can interact with it. But you could quite easily create something that inherits from this class deliverable, put it in the bin folder of your Umbraco website, and Chauffeur will immediately pick that up. You could interact with your own database, as I said, or ping out to a web service if you wanted to do a phone home to say that deployment is happening. Those sorts of things.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. It seems very extensible, and obviously you can meet lots of different needs. So I presume you guys are using this at your work. Is it kind of being dog fooded?
It's mostly been dog fooded by me when I'm on Umbraco projects. Obviously Umbraco 7 only projects, because that's my baseline API set. It's being used, but not it's not being used extensively. I'm not going to say that this is like everyone's using this on all their projects, and if you're not using it, you're mad or anything like that. It's still a bit of a I really want to see what other people would do with it. Does this solve problems that other people have had? Because it's my take on how I see this problem of doing deployments with Umbraco. But again, that's my personal opinion on how it should be done, and people that know me know that I have quite strong opinions on certain things.
Yes, it may be said.
Yeah, so my thoughts and opinions and approaches to this might be completely skewed with the bulk of the Umbraco community. The people that I've talked with think it sounds like a good idea, but very open to feedback.
From what you've demoed, it seems it's a good idea, and I can understand. It's not a replacement tool; it's a tool to be used with conjunction with other tools, like you said, Courier. Does a great job at content. Usync is great for serializing all this stuff down to disk. And then obviously using this maybe in a continuous integration, be it with TeamCity, Octopus Deploy, or just each developer runs this on their own. But I can see this being a worthy tool added to the toolset.
Yeah, so the idea that I do consulting, so I go into a project that I've got no background on. I just have a repository. I get a repository or something. I do a clone, and I run a command, and all of a sudden I've got a working Umbraco instance with the baseline structure of the site with document types and etc. That's sort of the goal of what I wanted to achieve. Is that it's not. Okay, so welcome to the project. Here's this big document. Can you go read that? You've also got to go speak to John over there. He'll get you a copy of the database. We might be able to get... once he's done, come back and see me, and we'll work out how we'll install that database on your machine. And then by the end of next week, we should have a working instance for you. And I kind of want to move away from that approach to doing websites.
Yeah, of course. I'm just going to quickly skim through YouTube channel and comments and check Twitter as well. But is there anything else you want to wrap up on, or you didn't get a chance to demo?
I didn't get the chance to actually demo the commands working because they kept failing on me because I forgot to.
I trust you that they work.
There's actually, I think, there's a blog post I did on my website, Aaron-Powell.com, imaginative website, that I do go through using some of these other commands as well. And I've got some stuff on the GitHub repository in the wiki on GitHub about writing your own extensions and if people are interested in doing that kind of thing as well. Awesome. But I'm more than open to pull requests or GitHub issues and things of people think as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to kind of continue the discussion and the contribution. Jump on over to GitHub on the project. So like you said,
on the GitHubs.
On the GitHubs. So it's Aaron Powell /Chauffeur. Cool.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap up there, Aaron. It's run on for ever so slightly longer, obviously due to tech difficulties and things like that. But have a great Friday and a great evening, and hopefully catch up with you sometime in the future.
Yep. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no worries, Aaron. Catch you soon.
See ya.
See you later.